Hello, welcome to West Country Wanderings. I'm Paul, and today you meet me at the location called Strete Gate. Now, remember that when I did Slapton, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2. Sorry about the hat, by the way. I'm freezing cold today. It's really chilly, but we've been promised warmer days tomorrow. But it's Sunday afternoon towards the end of March here, and I'm just really cold, so I've had to put my hat on. So sorry about that. I know it doesn't look great, but at least it's keeping my head warm. Yeah, I mentioned at the Slapton, say 1 or 2, about Strete Gate, and I ran out of time to come to this location. There is a beach here. Well, it's the end of Slapton Sands Beach, the 3.5 mile beach. But I've read something about this location which has brought me here today. And you may have seen that I put a little strapline on the last vlog I did at over at Sharpham, talking about a disappeared village. Well, that's the reason that I'm here today, and I'm just going to show you in a second what I've started to uncover. Now I'm going to put a map up to show you exactly where we are, but as you can see we're right by the shingle beach here at Slapton Sands, and that's not what we're interested in today. What I think I've covered is something quite fascinating. Now, as I said about the disappeared village, when you read it, you're probably thinking I was talking about Hall Sands. Now, we are going to explore a bit of Hall Sands. Obviously, Hall Sands is very well known, so I will cover it when I do my vlog on B Sands. But I saw this one and I didn't really know about it. Now, the village that has disappeared at this location didn't really have a name, or its name isn't very well known. Some sources call it Undercliff Village, and others just simply a different spelling of the village of Strete. Well, clearly Strete still exists, and which is above the cliff, but this location here is a village that disappeared, between 15 and 20 houses, and I'll come on and we'll explore exactly where the village was a bit on. But where I'm standing at the moment, which is right next to the car park, is the site of a manor house, and literally right where I'm standing at the moment. And I was having a look around to see if I could see any remains of the manor house, and I was giving up. I'm going to go on to the beach to discover more about the village, when I found this. Now, I'm not an archaeologist or expert in these matters, but there's something very odd about this, and I'm thinking that it could be something to do with the manor house that was at this location. Now, one thing you will see is that there are scattered, appears to be rock fragments on the floor, but they are well weathered, and it is potentially possible that these were part of the original building here. What I thought was interesting is this here underneath the bramble. First of all, I thought maybe it's a quarry, but if you have a look at the line across here, you'll see that it goes in a straight line. So I thought, well, it can't be a quarry. It looks like some form of brickwork. It is covered in moss, so it's very difficult to see what type of brick is underneath there, but it's certainly very solid, and you can make out where some of the mortar joints would have been. Now, if you come this way, sorry, I'm just getting attacked by nettles as we go. You can see there's two planes of rock, and it comes to a point here. I'm just going to lift up this stick so I can point to it, because I can't claim any either, because it's there. So we have this side here, which is certainly part of a brick wall. You can see one of the mortar joints along here, and another one down here. And then you can certainly make out another mortar joint on this side here, and another one up here, and certainly another mortar joint crack along here. Is that actually a gap right in that one there, as there is there. So this certainly here is a meeting of two brick walls. Now, whether this here was the corner of the outlying part of the manor house, I'm not too sure, but it certainly looks like, from what I've read it in 3 different sources now, there was a manor house here, that this could be the corner of our building. So we'll see if we can, what else we can uncover down here. As you can see, the line of the brickwork extends that way, and the line of the brickwork extends that way. So it looks like the source that we have is actually a manor house which would have lain in a diagonal direction towards the beach. So it wasn't end on towards the beach, but it seemed to that it was laying diagonally. So I'm just going to go further on this end. Now also to notice that where the line of the brickwork is, it's also coming down to a tapered point. Now that may be because there was a supporting work above, but the rest of it unfortunately is buried in the undergrowth over there. But there seems to be something here that's protruding. Where we have the ferns growing on top, there's something that's sticking up, a mound. And that's where my leg is now. That's certainly solid. It's not a what I first thought was going to be a broken branch or a tree that's come down. It's something very solid under there. Now by this marker post here we have some brickwork. Some of it's is a little newer, so I don't know whether somebody at some point has made an attempt to restore it. It looks like it has been repointed. Whether it was an internal wall, but in case you're again in any doubt, up here we have something which is much more substantial and again follows the diagonal line. So you can see the ivy there. But it continues along here. And yes, we have another corner. And also that. Now it has a diagonal slope, so would that have been not a window, but perhaps we're standing in the cellar, and that could perhaps have been where they put fuel like coal as a storage? I am speculating here, but I think we're actually standing what would have been the cellar of the manor house. And you can see how it extends above that. That there may have been on the top of that, the ground floor. And as I say, here this is probably the most complete section of the brickwork that we have seen yet. There are also another number of pits and rings, is the only way I can describe them at this location. Obviously this has been repurposed as a picnic area, but there's also another shallow hollow here. Now the only thing I can speculate is that when the manor house fell into disrepair and the roof collapsed, that it was the brick, some of the brick must have been salvaged from this location, and they probably then took a chance to excavate down to get some more of the foundations from this site. Now on the information board here it does refer to Street Gates Manor House Hotel, so that looks like the building that we're looking for, the manor house. And sadly, linking back to Exercise Tiger again, it looks like it was bombed. Remember I was talking about the Slapton and the preparations for Exercise Tiger with the bombardment to get the men battle hardened ready for the D-Day landings. It looks like during the course of all of that the hotel was severely bombed and was never repaired. So that's the rubble in the corner of the manor house that we can actually make out here at this location. Now this also refers to Strete Undercliff as it's mentioned on this one. As I say, I've also seen it called Undercliff Village and variations of that, so nobody seems to really know what it's called. But according to the plan here, it was recorded on a fishing map in 1693 at the foot of the cliffs at Strete. But we're going to have a look in that direction, see if there's any remains of anything there again today. Okay, so what do we know? Well, we know that it appeared on the map in the late 1600s. It may or may not have been called Strete Undercliff, and just to make clear, if you're not familiar with this location, the village of Strete is very much still in existence and is at the top of the cliffs that we're about to see. We do know that it disappeared sometime in the 1700s, presumably by storms. It would have been a fishing village. Maybe they were fishing for pilchards, mackerel, that kind of thing, similar to B sands. And it does appear on maps at the end of the 1700s. So 1790s, it was still on a map, although looks like it had disappeared before that time. The only other thing I've managed to be able to find out is that in the late 1800s, when the Victorians started to come to the South Devon for tourism, obviously the tourism started in the Wye Valley around about the 1850s, I believe, around the Tinton area. They moved on to South Devon later on, to this area, and there were travel writers, they had them back in those days too, mentioned seeing the ruins of Strete Undercliff, or Undercliff Street, at this location. And we're just going to see if there's anything at all. Obviously this is very exposed to the elements, this location, so I am doubtful, but we'll still have a look anyway. Just wanted to show you this bit here where the ivy and undergrowth is worn away. There has been a bit of erosion. Now that above there was originally the main A379 road between Kingsbridge and Dartmouth. It is now forms part of the South West Coast Path. You can actually make out parts of the road when you walk up the path, and it extends all the way up there. And obviously, because it was unstable to take the weight, they moved the road further inland from this location. But yeah, you can still make out the tarmac where the road was. I'm not sure the date that would have been changed. Maybe the 1960s, but that's a pure guess. Somebody is local and knows that. I've not been able to find out when it did happen, but if anybody does know, it'd be really interesting to know the date that the road got shifted further inland at Strete Gate. The cliffs here are very unstable. They're not as unstable as some other locations, whether you've got the red sandstones around Dawlish. You're probably familiar with the main railway line, the work the Network Rail are doing on that to stabilise that at the moment. So it's not as bad as that, but obviously they are exposed to the elements. We saw at Tor Cross where people have had to put up shutters when there's a storm because of all the shingle that blows into into their properties through the windows. And you can imagine that this would have been a very exposed location. And obviously what we do know is that somewhere here, at the foothills of these cliffs that tower above me, was once a small village, and sadly is no longer. Now, I have found something at this location, but don't get too excited. I would imagine that this is actually a remnant of the Second World War, and nothing to do with our missing village. Yeah, definitely to do with the Americans getting ready for D-Day. That, what exactly it was used for, I'm not sure. Probably a gun emplacement. You can see the 4 large iron studs there, so obviously something was seriously bolted down to that at this point. Again, more concrete here, and I think that again is nothing to do with our building, but more likely to be to do with the Second World War. Now there is winching gear here, which is obviously too new to be anything to do with the dates of our village. I have seen one exactly the same as that at a village called Lanarcombe which is near the most southerly tip of the South Hams, not down towards East Prawn. Again, it's an area I'd like to look at again. Why that would be here, I'm not too sure. It could be that although the village disappeared, that the people that live in Strete did use this as a fishing facility, and I would imagine that would have stopped before the Second World War, when obviously they had to move out of the village and they had to evacuate. So that would predate the Second World War, immediately predate the Second World War, but I would think it would have been used up to just before it. What is amazing is that the steel rod cables, which would have been used to winch in the small fishing boats, is still here. And it's actually still intact. It hasn't completely rusted away as you might think that it would do. But just have a quick closer look at that. Yes, there, the cable is still extant. Now, I like to link my vlogs together, but one thing I wasn't aware of when I was doing the Brixham vlog, and Brixham is probably a location I'll return to again, but probably the other end of it, down towards Berry Head. When I was walking from the cove at Churston towards Elbury Cove near the golf course, and I pointed out I didn't actually go down to the cove there, but you could see it through the trees. I wasn't aware of the fact that in the 1870s, I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact year. If I can find it, I'll drop again that in the title on the screen here. There was a massive hurricane, I think it was 1871, and I believe as many as 70 ships were completely smashed up, many of them ending up on the beach at Elbury Cove, and they were harboured in Toole Bay to shelter from the storm, but the wind speed got up to 100 miles an hour, so despite Toole Bay giving the boat some degree of protection, it wasn't enough to save them, and I believe as many as 80 people lost their lives on the night of that hurricane in the 1870s. Now, I've just moved in underneath the cliffs. There is something here. There are slates. Now obviously slates form naturally, as we saw the Dartmouth slate, that's the bedrock over where we saw it the other day at Dartmouth Farm, but it's potentially possible these could have once been slates on the roofs of the buildings here. I can only speculate, I don't have any firm evidence for that. Now you can see here though, these trees, they probably weren't here when the village was destroyed, but you can see around the base of that tree where the base rock protrudes, that there has been some rockfall activity, and that natural erosion coupled with a storm, which would have been the sound of the death knell for the village here at Strete, Undercliff. Now again, I am speculating somewhat, but there does appear to be a mound here where the trees have grown. Looks like a bay tree there. It's kind of got a Mediterranean feel to it here at this spot. It is quite sheltered underneath the cliff. There is like a protrusion. Obviously you'd get movement in the shifting sand all the time as the winds and the tides move it around, but I just get the sense that there could have been something here. It's like it's a foundation of something, because it is quite protruding above the height of the beach, which is just down there, but it's not high enough to be part of the actual cliff. It seems to stand on its own. There you can see the raised platform for the distance. That's the closest I've yet got to see any firm evidence of anything here. That does to me indicate some kind of flat foundation, which could have had 2 or 3 cottages on top of it. It does seem possible. Again, we have another location here, which is like a raised platform. Again, it could be to do with waves and erosion, but it is quite a height up from the main path which follows underneath the cliff. It raises up in 2 separate amounts, which could potentially indicate that something was here. And this is another location where you can see the underlying structure of the rock. If you remember where we saw it at Little Dartmouth, we had an inclined plane of virtually on the vertical. Here we're looking about 45 degrees. There you can see that on the right there, and 45-degree rock plains where it's been shifted. Now again, if it was sited in this location, I don't think anybody would sensibly build anything here, because obviously the danger of rockfalls. There are signs around. You certainly wouldn't want to stand under here during stormy weather. So I think, from what I've seen so far, the location of the village cottages could well have been at those raised platforms we saw by the bay trees. Well, that's the best I can do for you, I'm afraid. I think, I'm not an expert, but I would say that we have discovered it in terms of the platform being the most obvious location for those cottages, which form the beach here at Strete, Undercliff. Hello and welcome to part 2. Join me in the churchyard here in the village of Strete. We're going to have a walk to join up with the coastal path and find the hidden cove that I've been talking about. And as you can see, you meet me on a fantastic blue sky day, so perfect conditions for visiting the cove. So why not come along and join me on the walk down towards the cove. Just spotted this old school building here. And it says this schoolhouse was built by public contributions under the sanction of the National Society for the Sunday and Daily Tuition of the Children in the District, according to the principles of the Church of England, AD 1839. Now I've just noticed a sign for a community area, so I thought I'd come down this way rather than join the main busy road between Dartmouth and Kingsbridge. This is Strete's village green. What a view from a village green. Must be one of the finest views from any village green in the country. And we are headed down there towards the pine tree and then below it onto our cove. Just spotted these wonderful old barns here nestled in the corner of the main road. Now it's starting to come into view, but we've got a big descent ahead of us. Just now getting glimpses of the beach that's down on the cove at the bottom of the valley there. Now this is going to be a circular walk, so our route back to complete the circuit is going to be up to the right of the pine tree and up there to the top of the hill and then through the valley on the opposite side. And there's our beach. Yeah, the southwest coast path crosses the road at this point and heads down to our cove. So yes, I'm filming this the day after when you saw me exploring the disappeared village of Strete, Undercliff. Now, because that village disappeared sometime the late 1700s, although we can't get an exact year, it did survive a particular hurricane. I think there was a hurricane around the early 1700s, was it 1704? I'll drop that in. That it did survive that, but it didn't make it out to the end of that century, the end of the 18th century, and because photography wasn't started until the 1800s, there are no shots or images of what the village looked like. And of course, my graphic skills aren't up to doing a reimagining on top of the video of what the village could have looked like. It is speculation, but having a think about what I saw there yesterday, again today, I'm pretty certain that raised platform area was indeed the place where the village once stood, although we don't know how many cottages there were there because of the winding gear, which probably had been used either towards the end of sorry, I'm just gonna have to stop filming for a second. I'll read you in a sec. It's very, very slippery. Sorry, yes, I've just come down from there. I'm sorry I had to stop for doing the piece to camera because it got very, very steep and was a bit slippery, so I do apologise for that. Just come down to this delightful stream. As I was saying, that I don't have the graphic skills to have done a reimagining what the village looked like, but I'm pretty sure that raised platform was indeed the site of our lost village of Strete, Undercliff. And obviously it's such a long time ago that I don't know if people researching their families' histories that have connections to Strete have ever uncovered whether one of their ancestors did indeed reside at that village that was sadly lost to the sea. Of course, with coastal erosion, I'm sure it isn't going to be the first village, and clearly it's not in South Devon, because we've also got Horse Sands, where I'll tell the story of that when we do the Bee Sands vlog. There'll be many other villages which will be lost to sea. I believe there are 3 or 4 which are likely to disappear into the sea over in East Anglia within the next 50 years. And sometimes you have to make a call: is it worth bracing up or reshoring sea defences for the erosion to then shift further down around the coast and take out a bigger settlement? Sometimes you just have to let nature take its course and then retract inland and to rebuild elsewhere. Now, I have a confession to make. I don't actually know the name of this cove. I did, and I've forgotten it. I did look it up before. There are actually 3 coves between Blackpool Sands and Strete village, or the edge of Strete Gate, where we were filming yesterday. They've all got names. I can't remember them, so what I'm going to do is, when the cove appears properly, we're on the beach, I'll drop a subtitle in there of what that one's called, and also find out the names of the other 2. This is a not very well known spot, so I hope I'm not ruining it by highlighting it again here today, but it is a magnificent location, and I just thought I'd like to share it with you. And I haven't actually come across anybody else on the footpath down here at all at the moment. The southwest coast path continues up, so where we cross the bridge by the stream, it goes back up the other side, so the coast path itself doesn't make its way to the beach, which is probably another reason why it's not that popular. Now we're coming down much lower now. Waves from now certainly very audible. I seem to remember when I came here last, it has an odd acoustic effect with the waves, so we'll see if the microphone can pick that up. You won't notice it yet, but as we get onto the beach it does kind of echo around, so we'll see what that's like today. Notice this platform here, or foundation, previously, and it's clearly there's certainly some bits of brickwork there. There was once a building here. There's actually solid bricks. Now, whether it was like a changing or bathing place like the one at Elbury Cove, I'm not sure, or whether it was something to do with fishing, the fishing industry. I don't know, but it's clearly not that old, because here we have bricks, which could indicate it's Victorian, and so they look like red-fired bricks. So I say I don't know when it was last used, but I would think it was some kind of utility building to do with the beach or fishing industry, rather than a residential property. Yeah, so we've come down to the beach now, and as you can see, it's absolutely crammed with people. It's very busy here. Now, that cove I do know the name of. That's Leonard's Cove, which is outside the village of Stoke Fleming, the next nearest village to here. And the rocks that you can see are the museum. As you can see, it gets very busy here. No, the last time I came last summer, and I think it might have been a rainy day, unlike today, but again there was no one here, and I'm sure that was like July, August time, so it's not that well known. Obviously in the height of August, on a nice day, there will be a few people here, but because you have to walk at least 1.5 miles to get, there's no parking anywhere near this beach, and also no facilities, ice creams, toilets, that kind of thing. That obviously restricts its popularity, but that, if you like isolated beautiful beaches, this is absolutely perfect. Now, there is a cave at this point. Just have a look at that. I'm not going to go too far in because it's dripping with water, which is what you'd expect, as the rainfall has penetrated the soil above and then it's percolated through the rock to be filtered. Again, we're looking at Dartmouth slate here being the predominant rock formation, and we also have the vertical plains like we did when we were down at Little Dartmouth. Now I've just spotted something extraordinary to do with the rocks. Obviously we've got the almost 45 and 60 degree vertical plane of the slates, but at this point they appear to bend in the middle. That's not something I've ever noticed before. There was certainly a circular arc on that lower plane of the slate. And here we've gone back to the vertical plane, complete vertical plane for all the banding on the rock on this side. Sorry, that's just in a bit of shadow. I'll just move a bit closer. See if that comes a bit clearer. Yes, there we go. Towering above me. Absolutely extraordinary sight. Now this piece of slate here is very, very striking. Obviously it's been eroded away from the main block of rock and cliff behind me, but as you can see here, the sea has smoothed off the corners, so we've left, whereas slate is normally jagged, we have been left with these very, very smooth contours around the side of the slate, which is just wonderful. Now this cave goes back a lot further. It's actually not dripping so much, this one, so we'll go in and see what we can see. You can see the entrance to the cave there, that the sea has forced the shingle and sand to form a bank, and it's actually got a small pond, I don't know what else to call it, lagoon, just behind. It's not very big. The cave ends just a little bit further towards there. It's not actually going further into the rock, but it does go back further than the other ones in this area. Now back looking across towards Slapton Sands, the transmitter start point transmitter, and across towards start point lighthouse. Now the sun's just catching the light on the slate here and gives it a very striking silvery metallic appearance. Such a beautiful day today. It does look like we could be on a tropical island rather than in South Devon at the moment. Now, word of warning, if you do come to any of the beaches around here, the coves in particular, the tidal range is quite, well, it's a wide range, but also the tide comes in very fast. In actual fact, I'm just looking at through the camera now, since where I walked around this promontory, the gap between the sand and the sea that I need to get around is actually narrowed quite considerably, so I will not be here too much longer to avoid being cut off by the tide at this point. And as you can see, the sand, there is a narrow sand strip, so you could actually walk around to Slapton at the moment, but you probably, well, almost certainly you wouldn't be able to make your way back this direction. You just have that narrow gap there, which, as you can see, it's starting to cover up some of the footprints that people have left earlier. It's now breached the dry bit. There it goes. Yes, when you do get beautiful days like today, it can lead you into a false sense of security. Still need to be wary of tides and particularly currents if you go into the sea bathing. Interesting phenomena here at the moment. The stream's running down through the valley that we saw, and it comes along here, trickles its way down there through the stone, and then makes its way to that point. When it gets to that point there, it disappears into the sand. Now you'd think it would break through, and make its way further down into the sea, but it doesn't. It percolates directly through the sand and gently filters out through the sand into the sea over a wider area. Fascinating. Whenever I see this tree, I immediately think of Laurel and Hardy. Does this mean it's the end of the trail? I've just climbed up from the beach again, but you are rewarded with this fantastic view. Excuse me if I'm slightly out of breath. It's quite a steep climb. So that's the edge of the beach that we're on, towards the front of the image, and in the middle and slightly to the left is our old friend Blackpool Sands. Now it has warmed up to quite a significant degree. Got the sea behind me. This footpath is now taking us inland along a valley towards the village of Strete, where we started our journey. We're not quite done with the hills yet. We still have the hill in front of me to climb to get back to Strete. I'm just on the outskirts of the village, but you can see Slapton Sands from this location, as well as Slapton Ley, which we've uncovered, all the way round through B Sands, Hall Sands, and round again to the tip at Start Point. You get a good perspective of the village of Strete from this location. There you can see the church where we started our walk. Our footpath continues through the gate, hugging the side of the contour of the valley, round the curve and back into the village. Now this is a lovely spot just to sit under the shade, listen to the sound of the birds and the little brook babbling underneath into the valley bottom. And when you think that this walk can't give you any more, it keeps on giving. Wonderful bridge over the valley here. Final thing to point out here is that the start, or the end, of the footpath is right next to a bus stop, and if you are coming to the area and want to use green transport, highly advisable. The bus service is the number 3 and it goes from Plymouth towards Kingsbridge and on to Dartmouth prior to it stopping here at the village of Strete. So there's the bus stop, and just running around, there's the footpath, literally right on that. I think that the bus service, it certainly did run approximately every hour between Plymouth and Dartmouth. Well, it's quiet down here, nobody around, just a bit sheltered away from the sea and the waves, but you should be able to still hear them. Thought I'd have a little chat with you. Now, as I record this, it's the Monday the 29th, which is of March, which denotes a significant date in the unlocking of what we have been through for just over the past year or so with coronavirus. Now, what it does mean from today, if you're in England, you are allowed to travel further away from your home, although the advice is to stay as local as you possibly can. However, it changes again. I think it's from the 12th of April, when the self-catering establishments, of which there are very, very many around this area, as I'm sure you're aware, they can then open up to put up one household, not mixing households, but just one household, which means there will be an increase in the number of visitors in this area, and the nice quiet times I've had where filming in beautiful locations maybe become a little bit more difficult and trying. So what I'll try to do is to film those locations at quieter parts of the day, towards the end of the day or at the start of the day. Obviously now the clocks have changed, they changed on Saturday going into Sunday, so we've got that extra bit of light, which is fantastic to carry out filming and hopefully to get some sunset shots. I haven't done any of that for a while, so looking forward to that. So what I was coming on to, the reason for explaining that is because you probably as you're watching this, thinking about your own plans as we come around to lockdown, whether that's to do with your household, whether it's to do with where you work, or whether it's to do with your travel plans and visiting other places. So you might be thinking about where you can actually go to. And as I say, I'm in a little bit of a limbo in terms of potentially moving to Cornwall, and I will keep you posted with that. So I could be moving soon, but I'll still obviously be filming in the West Country area. In terms of where I can start moving though, is that from today I can actually start filming a bit further away from where I live, which is just outside Dartmouth. I can extend that into other parts of Devon, and so coming up on the channel I'll be looking at B sands. I promised you that one, so we'll be doing that one, and also around Stoke and Beeson. I'll probably cover that in one vlog, and also the Hall Sands village. I'll then be looking at perhaps potentially doing something in Cornwall. I've not done anything in Cornwall as yet, and I think my first one in Cornwall might be a visit to the Tamar Valley, which is about 15-20 miles to the north of Plymouth. You're probably all thinking National Trust Katia. Well, that is open, and that will be part of the vlog. I certainly hope to cover some of the gardens within that, but also the wider Tamar Valley area. Obviously you've got the beautiful viaduct at Calstock, and potentially I may actually do that one on foot and train from Calstock railway station. So lots coming up. So if you want to subscribe to the channel and then hit the bell icon, YouTube will let you know when the next one uploads. Thank you for joining me today. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. All the best for now. Cheers. Bye bye.